Hi, Phil Aston here from Now Spinning magazine, and this is a tribute to Burke Shelley, the bass player from Budgie, who sadly passed away recently. Today is also the anniversary of my mom passing away, so to do this today has extra weight to it. And a lot of tributes like this always talk about the music, and I think because it's also the date that my mum, anniversary of my mum passing away, I'm aware that we're also talking about someone's dad, someone's husband, family member. And although for many of us rock fans it's all about the music, and we say that we are devastated, and we are on a level, of course we are. For someone like it's Ella, who is Burke Shelley's daughter, who basically got the news out there that her dad had sadly passed away. We have to also be mindful, and I'm very mindful of this because I never know where these videos are going to end up, who's going to see them. So if I presume that Ella and Burke Shelley's other children ever see this video, then I want to say that I'm very sorry to hear the news, but I want you to know that your dad made a very special contribution to the world of rock music, and it must be very unusual and odd for you to see your dad in the way that many people around the world saw him and still see him, because you would obviously not have been around when he was treading the boards in the height of his fame. And he is a very, very important man in the kind of construct of rock music as we have all grown to love it. And that's obviously the band Budgie, Burke Shelley's band, that he put together with Tony Borge and Pete Boot and various other people that joined the band along the way. But those were the cornerstones of that band. And many people you will see around the world, including many famous people. Metallica helped bring the name Budgie to a bigger audience, and many Opeth have also paid great tributes as well. But you will find that everyone will say the same thing, that Budgie should have been a lot bigger than they were. And I am one of those. And it's a bit like I've said before on the Now Spinning website and on various social media posts, that it's almost like the first three bands through the gate who form a new genre are the ones that seem to fly the highest. And if you're fourth, fifth or sixth, wherever you are, you never quite catch up with the others. And maybe that was what happened with Budgie. But when you listen to the music that Budgie left us now, especially the 70s bands, they are unique. And I think the closest, they're the bridge between Black Sabbath and Led Zeppelin. You could say there's a bit of Rush in there as well. But they were unique. So I don't want to just do a normal, or typical rather, tribute video, because there'll be loads of these out there. So as I've started it by wording it as if Burke Shelley's children might eventually see this one day, I want also for new rock fans, who you must be completely overwhelmed by seeing all these people posting pictures of Budgie albums, and you might feel you're on the outside of the party, and think, what do I do? Where do I start? Is this a band I should be interested in? If you're into rock music, they're well worth exploring. For me personally, my journey was via this album, Never Turn Your Back on a Friend. I heard the track Parents on the radio. Now the track Parents is almost a ballad, and I was playing this yesterday when I heard the news, and my wife Sue said, is that a man or a woman singing that song? Because she'd not heard it before. And I said, it's a guy, it's Burke Shelley. And she said, what a fantastic voice. And she said, you could imagine somebody like Amy Winehouse covering that song. I hadn't thought about that before. But when you listen to Parents, because of the unique tonality of Burke Shelley's voice, you could easily imagine a female vocalist covering Parents and making it a hit now. It is an absolutely fantastic song, and the guitar solo, the way Tony Borch did these kind of repetitive lines and repetitive riffs within his lead work, and the way he makes the guitar sound like lots of seagulls in the sky a couple of times in the song, it's just very magical. So that kind of set the scene for me wanting to find out about this record. But of course, most people know about the album because of a specific track called Breadfan. Now, if you're new to rock music, seek out Breadfan. Most of Budgie's music isn't available to stream, probably through licensing issues or whatever, so you will need to buy a physical item. And why not? Just look at that cover. This is the vinyl version of, I mean, just look at that, Roger Dean cover. It's just beautiful. But, sorry, Zoom, coming on to Zoom Club. But Breadfan starts with a riff. Now, I love riffs. When I was, I was like 15 years of age, 14, 15 when I heard this. And there was a thing about things being less is more. So give people what they want, but pull back. I used to be in bands who talked like that. Budgie were more about more is more. So whereas some bands would have a riff and they'd repeat it 2 or 3 times and the band would come in and then they'd be off to the verse. No, not Budgie. For Breadfan, they do the riff and they do the riff and they do the riff, and it is one hell of a riff. I think it stands out in the ocean of riffs, the oceans of riffage from the 70s. Breadfan stands head and shoulders above almost anything that ever came before or after it. It's like uses the same notes as Sunshine of Your Love by Cream, but mixes them up and amplifies them up to 100 and then speeds it up. So it sounds nothing like it, but the ingredients are there, being a power trio. So the riff keeps playing, and then the power chords come in, and then the band join in, and then the riff keeps going. It's just so powerful. And the song goes to a place where you wouldn't expect it to go to. It goes to this beautiful acoustic section in the middle. And how they get there is you just think, well, how could you possibly how is that going to happen? But it happens, and it happens perfectly. The other thing that sets them apart to me is the funk. Burke Shelley was a very funky bass player. His lines were very, very funky. He was a very intricate bass player. The production, and they produced this album themselves, his bass lines are clear and in the mix. And Tony Borch also, his guitar, he did lots of like funky rhythms and stuff in amongst the kind of really hardcore heavy metal riffs. So they were a funky band, and Burke had a very soulful voice, a very unusual voice, a voice that was between here, which is Robert Plant, and Geddy Lee from Rush. But as he said in many times in interviews, he didn't mimic anybody. He just sang and was himself. He was completely himself. So that is a classic place to start for those of you who are seeing this news and wondering where to go next. And that classic album, the biggest chart album was In for the Kill. And when I was at school, lots of kids bought this. And it also has the third, if I'm going to mention 3 songs in this video, I think, that you should go out and try and stream if you're new to the band, and if you're not and you're a fan, then play them, is Parents, Breadfan, and Zoom Club. Zoom Club off this In for the Kill from 1974 has a riff that is just incredible, and the way that they mess around with it, they play around with it. Most bands would have just gone straight in, verse, chorus. They don't. They mess around, they pull back. There's a bit, there's kind of a little play going on, and then the riff kind of half comes in, and then they pull back again, and you're not quite sure, is that the riff or is it going to be something else? No, it is the riff, but they're just taking the scenic route to the point where they come in and everything just locks in, and you just know that this is a serious bit of guitar riffage. And the solo as well. Tony Borch had this way of doing these almost hypnotic riffs that would go on, you know, that in anyone else's hands, they'd outstay their welcome, but not with Budgie, because of the way that they kind of played around with them. You know, Burke Shelley's kind of funky bass lines are in amongst it, and his lyrics and his little ad libs that he did, the little sounds he made with his voice that just glued it all together. You know, absolutely fantastic. And they made loads of albums, but I don't want this to be, you know, this is a tribute to Burke Shelley. So I want this to kind of sit there on this channel as inspiration for people to go off and find out for yourself what the band's like. And the other album I want to mention, of course, the ones in the 80s are just as good, but this one I think has to have a mention, because when this came out, loads of people I knew had bought this, and I just left school, so it came out in, I think it's 1975, so I left school in the July. I started my job at a factory. I used to come home from Birmingham, get on the bus, and loads of my mates I used to know from school were catching the bus then from their factories. And there's no iPods, there's no CD players on the bus, there's no Walkmans. So we talk about things like, what are you going to play when you get home? What are you going to put on? And one of my mates, Paul, said, I can't wait to get home because I'm going to play Bandolier by Budgie. I get home, and before my mum and dad call me downstairs for my tea, I want to get through sides 1 and 2 of this. And I knew exactly what that was like, because that's exactly what I did. You know, playing Breaking All the House Rules, Who Do You Want From Your Love, I Can't See My Feelings, and Napoleon Bonaparte's Part 1 and Part 2. Fantastic. So, what would I recommend for anyone starting out? There are lots of albums to explore, but the little box set here, called Budgie, the MCA Years, unfortunately it only covers 73 to 75, so it doesn't squawk of the first albums that are here, but these 3 albums, Never Turn Your Back on a Friend, Bandolier and In for the Kill, are absolute classics. And you can pick this up for a great price. And if you want to know what all the fuss is about with Burke Shelley and Budgie, if you're new to the band, then these are great. They all come in little gatefold sleeves with photographs and stuff. And obviously, Never Turn Your Back on a Friend had a great gatefold anyway. But look at that picture of Burke Shelley there. It just looks like a proper mystical rock star up there in the Welsh mountains. And that's a great cover as well from Patrick Woodruff. It comes with a little booklet, and with an interview with Burke Shelley from the time. Malcolm Dome did another guy we've sadly lost, but lots of great stuff. And there's a great line in here from Burke Shelley where he says we were an overnight sensation by the time we got to the early 80s. I saw Budgie a few times, and the best time I think I saw them was at the Birmingham Odeon, when I really thought, when they played the Birmingham, I thought, my God, Budgie are going to make it. They're going to be one of the biggest bands. It was on the Impeccable tour, and it wasn't sold out, but everybody was on their side. Everybody wanted Budgie to break through into the first division. But of course, what we didn't realise, and you probably realise now, and going back to how I started with Ella announcing the news about her dad, is that now, in 2022, your dad is probably more respected, and Budgie are more respected than they've ever been. You know, these albums now are being seen as the building blocks to what we see as modern rock music. The beginning of heavy metal. You know, of course Black Sabbath were there, but there was no reason at all why, the same producer on those first couple of albums, that the riffs that, Burke Shelley and Tony Borch forged in steel are just as relevant and are resonating around the world now more than they've ever done. So today, play some Budgie. If you don't have any, get some. Start with the greatest hits. Start with this little box set. Play Breadfan, play Parents, play Zoom Club. Thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for your support, and I shall see you on my next video.